Now, first off, we all know that according to prophecy, I said I was going to go into it this week, that Iran is the key point of prophecy in our current time. Now, here's a question. Why under Christianity they would make you believe Gog and Magog is Russia? Why would they push that prophecy of Russia opposed to it being Iran under Christianity? Why? That's a diversion tactic so that you can't see the true prophecies. All right? Russia and the Edomites that are in Russia are controlled by the same powers that control Israel and America. They're all in one. There was never a Cold War. Russia have never been against America. America have never been against Russia. Those are bold-faced lies and propaganda for patriotism to pit the civilians against another country. So they can switch and bait different enemies so that they can rally patriots together against another country. Under Morals and Dogma, Albert Pike, the powers that be said during the turn of the 19th century that they was going to make everyone believe that America was enemies with Russia, that they would play off democracy with communism and vice versa until they have the last world war against the Middle East. All right? So really, when you look at Gog and Magog, you must ignore Christians' prophecies. They are diversions. Christianity prophetically is what we would call the wine of Babylon. It's the wine of the whore. You'll never figure out the prophecies following the so-called prophets in Christianity, because it was all set up by the Roman Catholic Church and the Jesuits. And I don't care who you go to. You go to Hagee, you go to, what's the other guy? The guy that him and his wife be on the news program ever so often. Jack Van Impe, and who be totally butchering scriptures. This guy, he be John 3:16 and how much I'm like, listen, total mess. Jack Van Impe, they're all part of the Jesuit programming of diversion. And see, some people might ask, especially in America, well, why haven't we caught wind to their deception? Well, slaves don't have any history to draw upon. So you don't have any information to say whether or not they're right or wrong. So you must accept anyone that's showing any level of Bible prowess as experts. But if you want to know who Gog and Magog is, and that's the last real war in this earth before the destruction of Babylon, it's simple. Now that you have Google the ancient map of Magog. It's that simple. And you know what you'll get? You'll get southern Iran. That's what you'll get. Mid to southern Iran is Magog. It's always been. And the Most High didn't change his prophecy because some people decided to move to different parts of the earth. Some of us believe that. Because you didn't move to different parts of the earth, the Most High is not speaking of the original landmass in which he was prophesying about. You can only do this in America, which is total confusion. Magog is Iran. Get Russia out of the equation. As a matter of fact, Russia is nothing more than a proxy of the Roman Empire, spying in on that land. That's all it is. They're all together. So let me tell you, do not buy the mainstream media propaganda. Think about it. 15, 20 years ago, you ever thought that in America you would have Russia TV? They made you think Russia wasn't anything. And the Cold War is over. There was never a Cold War. Okay? They are together. All right? And who are they together against? The children of Israel. All right? And the only reason they're going to war against Iran is because Iran is not in league with what they're looking to do, what they're trying to do. They're not in league with the one world order. And Iran prophetically knows that they have to stand against these powers in this time, or their country will be destroyed like Iraq. But let's see the prophecies concerning Gog and Magog in order to understand this first. This is what we have. This is what you must know. The Most High have a chosen people, the children of Israel. The second thing you must realize, and make sure you get your pencils and paper with you here, is that Satan have a people too. Satan have a chosen people. Yeah, there's many Gentiles. There's many institutions and powers, but you don't understand this war unless you understand that Satan have a people. I need you to get two places. Let's get Matthew 4, and give me the one in Daniel's where it talks about the people of the prince. Matthew, where he was taken to the 4th chapter, where Christ was taken to a pinnacle.
St. Matthew chapter 4, verse 8. Again the devil taketh him up into an exceeding high mountain, and showeth him all the kingdoms of the world, and the glory of them, and saith unto him, all these things will I give thee, if thou wilt fall down and worship me.
So Christ is sitting here and was taken to a pinnacle by Satan, and say, look at all these empires. Showed him all the kingdoms of the earth, and said, told Christ, all these kingdoms will I give you if you bow down and worship me. So common sense would tell you, every empire or government that's established in the earth is under who? Satan. If he had the power to give it to Christ in the earth, then he must be the God of these constructs. That's common sense. So while your church have you praying for these particular governments and institutions, you have to realize what you're praying to uphold Satan's empire. So the question is, if Christ denied these, who accepted them? That's the question. Christ denied it. Well, you know the story. Christ rebuked him with scripture, saying, you cannot tempt me. And eventually, Satan could not stand with Christ's rebuke and flee. So Christ didn't accept the kingdoms, but who did? Who accepted them? Now, this is what you don't want to talk about. I speak with Christians, I speak with professionals. Those professors, you know what? They live in ambiguity. How can you call yourself a student of the word and have no conclusions on anything? They live in total distortion and ambiguity and are satisfied with not knowing certain things. That's put before them in Scripture. So really, these institutions were not set up to give you understanding. They were set up to continue the confusion. All right? If Christ denied these kingdoms, who accepted them? Let's go to the book of Daniel.
The book of Daniel, chapter 9, verse 26.
Go ahead.
And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off.
That's when Christ was crucified.
But not for himself.
But not for himself.
And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary.
So the people of the prince. So this is speaking of the people of the prince of darkness. Right after Christ was crucified, what?
The people of the prince.
The people who are with the prince of darkness, read.
That shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary.
Shall destroy Jerusalem. So how do we know who the people of the prince are? Who destroyed the children of Israel in 70 AD? Thank you, the Roman Empire, the fourth beast. So they're the people of Satan. They're Satan's children. Now they hide themselves with certain names today, but they're Romans nonetheless. When you look at the areas of Switzerland, Poland, Germania, which is German, all these areas were attachments to ancient Rome, Causaria. See, some of us don't even research and realize that Khazar is another word for Caesar. The Khazars converted into Judaism between the 8th and the 11th century. So they Khazars. They're the people of the prince of darkness. Do you know before they converted to Judaism that they were called the serpent people? Yeah. Do your research. So these Romans are hiding using the term Israel, when in fact they're the people of the prince that destroyed Jerusalem before. And now they've used these wars in which they have germinated. These are the wars they've created as a pretext to now go into the Middle East and destabilize the Middle East for the last real battle according to Scripture. And what do this battle lead to? This battle that's about to happen with Iran, the people of the prince, this battle against Iran leads to the total annihilation of the daughter of Babylon. So that they can now have full power again as Rome without the threat of America. So you might ask, well, why would they want to do this? You have to understand, brothers and sisters, Rome's objective the whole time was to destroy the children of Israel. You want to look at 90% of the population being destroyed, the world's population. What happens if they destroy the Babylon, the daughter of Babylon? That's the bulk of the percentages within the earth. That's the pretext. They never planned for Babylon or the daughter of Babylon or America to rule until the coming of Christ. They knew that wasn't the case. They went as a conquest under the Roman Empire. They found our people in America and they built their construct through this country who they will now sacrifice before they go back and rule from Europe. That was the plan all along. That wasn't their land from the beginning. So they could care less. So, what's the plan? So in order for them to do this, Satan had to set up what? He had to set up ministers of darkness, which is your Masonic orders or your government powers, as well as your political institutions. And he had to make the civilians in the world, he had these ministers re-educate you into believing that he was actually the Most High. 2 Corinthians 11 and 11, read it.
2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 13.
11 and 13.
For such are false apostles, deceitful workers,
Go ahead.
transforming themselves into the apostles of Christ.
Transforming themselves into the apostles of Christ. Read.
Verse 14. And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light.
So don't marvel at how they was turned into ministers. Satan himself have now become the angel of light. Why? Because these are his kingdoms. Christ turned down his kingdom, but he's still the God of his kingdoms. So now they had to re-educate the slaves to believe that this demon was Christ or the Most High. Hence, the religious institution set up by the Roman Catholic Church, along with Islam, to get us on the other side of the world. Missionaries to destroy the children of Israel throughout the four corners. Look, the missionaries didn't go and try to convert Europeans. They wasn't looking to convert Asians. So these missionaries of Catholicism and Christianity and Islam are predominantly aimed towards the poor. The children of Israel who were scattered throughout the four corners of the earth were their primary target from the beginning, to try to destroy the woman that bare the man child. And see, and that's why they don't want you to identify who the children of Israel are. That's why they don't want you to figure this out, because you'll know that there's a directive. There's a mission from Satan himself to destroy God's people. And if you look in number what people are being destroyed by governments all over the earth, 9 times out of 10, you'll see that these are the people, the children of Israel, who ran from the Romans into those respective areas. Right? Finish reading.
2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 15.
Go ahead.
Therefore it is no great thing if his ministers also be transformed as the ministers of righteousness.
Now his ministers have been transformed as the ministers of righteousness. That means Satan have ministers in the political arena as well as the religious arena, whom all of you may look at as angels of light, but they're pushing Satan's agenda. They got you every Sunday under the cross of Tammuz, making you believe they're down with Christ when they're paid by government. You see T.D. Jakes, he was sitting right there next to George Bush in one instance. These people are ministers of Satan. They done set up the TBN network, the so-called Christian Broadcast Network, which was really a proxy that's used for Christians and the Christian and Roman agenda to get into third world countries and destroy them, to destroy the children of Israel. Read.
Whose end shall be according to their works.
Whose end shall be according to their works. Read. Now I need you to go to Ezekiel 38. Now I'm going here to show you that this is an impending war. The whole earth, as it reads in Psalms 83, show you all the nations that join together and say, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel be no more in remembrance. But I don't think you've noticed that in that whole agreement to destroy us, you don't see anything about Iran. You notice when Mahmoud Ahmadinejad went to speak before the UN, one of his last speeches before this one, he mentioned something that you would never hear in a speech. He said, how can these so-called diplomats be for world peace and love when they imprison their own people more than any other people on the earth? How could they be for freedom and democracy? How is it these people who are suffering in this country never received any level of reparations for slavery, when America is the only country who've enslaved their own and have become rich off of the backs of black people? He made these statements. He says, listen, is Iran behind enslaving black people and putting them in captivity? Are we behind this? He was the only diplomat that I've ever seen stand up on an international level and speak the truth to what happened to slaves. Then he says, you talking about prison? Y'all talking about me imprisoning people in our capital punishment in my country. Hey, how many people do you kill in this country? You imprison more people in your country than all countries combined. And why is the prisons filled with black and Hispanic people? 75 to 80% of black and Hispanic people. Are you bringing slavery back again? He brought these things to the forefront. No black diplomat, not Jesse Jackson, not Reverend Al Sharpton, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. You checking that out? Now, I'm not down with Mahmoud Ahmadinejad or Iran. I'm going to tell you that right now, because their empire must fall too. Well, that's common sense. How can these empires be in rulership when Christ's kingdom is coming? And he will be the only king. He'll take all crowns. So I'm not down with him or believe in his ideology. I'm just showing you, when you look at all these diplomats, he's willing to speak the truth. And I also wanted to mention this because the switch and bait the whole time, for years they was getting us geared up against Russia, when that was a diversion tactic, when we should have been talking about Iran the whole time. That's the true issue. That was just a diversion tactic. Russia owns almost all of California right now. The majority of California, San Francisco and all that, have been already purchased, have been given to the Russians. So there's no fight against Russia in America. China owns parts of America. They own the South for the longest. Parts of the South for the longest. Great Britain owned the East Coast for the longest. So that land originally was taken over by foreign invaders from foreign countries, and that never changed. America itself is a corporation that was incorporated in Great Britain. It's an established corporation from Great Britain. That's what the United States of America is. It's a company. For those who don't understand, if you have a company and you split that, let's just say you split that, let's make it small. You split that country up into 4 shares, quarters. You have a right to sell that stock. Anyone from any place can invest in that quarter stock that you have, in those 4 parts. You don't care where they're from. Okay? If they pay you enough, they can get a quarter share. Just to show you that. When the conquerors came from Europe to take over America, it wasn't to establish America as a sovereign country. It was to tear it apart and eventually destroy her altogether. That was the point. And of course, they'll get you diverted because, I mean, America is big. It's the greatest of everything, greatest of glimmer, greatest of distraction, best series, best TVs, best movie. Everything is just one big diversion. But still, the reality is, soon the lights are going to go out. And what's about to happen with Iran is the key indicator. It's the key part of everything. I noticed, I was mentioning this earlier before we came on. I was saying how the guy, Max Kaiser, someone asked Max Kaiser a question. He lives in France right now. He had French citizenship. Someone asked him a good question and asked him, why is it he think outside the country will be safer opposed to America? He said, I haven't looked at every demographic of it, but he said there's one key indicator that there's something that the American powers are not telling its people, is that they're doing everything to stop future Americans from getting passports, and he haven't seen this with any other country he frequented. So something they're not telling the people if they don't want them to travel. Asking people questions about what doctor delivered your mother or your father. Who knows that? What doctor delivered you? Who was in the delivery room? What people sign off in a delivery room? What type of questions is that if you want to go travel some other place? So he's just saying, he says he don't really know, even though I think he know more than he's saying. He says, but I know that there's laws being put in place to stop Americans from traveling. And even Mexicans. The Mexicans are trying to stop Americans from coming over. Canadians are trying to stop American migrating over. So what's going on? So I'm going to put it out there just to see what's going on. To see if people apply for their passports and get some weird letters or all that, try to let us know about that so I can see what's going on with that if you can. All right, because I've seen a lot of weird things going on with passports now, where they're trying to deny passports. So he's saying that something is going to happen in which they don't want Americans to leave. Why? Why would you want to keep people in the greatest country on earth? Right? But going back to Magog. Let's go to Ezekiel 38. I said we would handle that today.
The book of Ezekiel, chapter 38, verse 1. And the word of the Most High Ahiah came unto me, saying,
Go ahead.
Son of man, set thy face against God, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshach, and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus saith the Most High Ahiah, Behold, I am against thee, O God, and the chief prince of Meshach, and Tubal. Verse 4. And I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and will bring thee forth, and all thy army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor.
Now when it says, I shall put hooks in your jaws and bring thee back, you notice when it comes to all these things that are going on in the Middle East, Iran have really been on the side for a good while. So if a horse is running one direction, that means the Most High is going to put hooks in that horse's jaws and force it to go a different direction. Now, when this speaks of Persia, which is Magog, it also is encompassing the Asian countries who are in league with him, like China, like Pakistan, who have nuclear capabilities. All these areas are Asian. See, and I know some of you, because it's in the Middle East, you think they're all Ishmael. Incorrect. These are Japhetic people. That's why it says, Japheth shall live in the tents of Shem. Japheth is living in the tents of Shem. Japheth is the Asians. Iran is Asia. Read.
Verse 4. And I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth in all thy army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Verse 5. Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya, with them, all of them with shield and helmet.
And you notice all these countries are the same countries that been, a lot of them turned around during the so-called Arab Spring. Read.
Verse 6. Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters, and all his bands, and many people with thee. Verse 7. Be thou prepared and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. Verse 8. After many days thou shalt be visited. In the latter years thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword.
That is brought back from the sword. Let you know that that land will be destroyed. Read.
And is gathered out of many people against the mountains of Israel, which have been always waste, but is brought forth out of the nations. And they shall dwell safely, all of them. Verse 9. Thou shalt ascend and come like a storm. Thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land.
Now here's where the Christians are getting the prophecy distorted. They are claiming that this is modern day prophecy, where the Arabs and all the other nations come up against the Jewish people in the land today. But here's a key point. Go back up where it says, brought back from the sword.
Verse 8. After many days thou shalt be visited. In the latter years thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword.
So if it was destroyed, this is speaking of when our people begin to go back into those respective areas. It's not speaking of the Jewish people. This is not a war against Iran and Israel. Why? Because the scriptures tell you that once they hit Israel, the government kings are going to go run into Chittim, and they're going to make their way back to Rome. So this is a later prophecy, after Iran done already gained power with this war, after they've already destroyed Babylon. Why? Because once Iran do this strike, like it says in Isaiah 13, after they strike Iran, and Iran is a terror on this earth, Iran is going to join all these countries together that went up in the Arab Spring. Libya is unstable. So it's prime ground for Iran to now take it. See that? So all these countries, Ethiopia, are going to operate with Iran. Why? Because the Western world destabilized them. But once Iran strike, they're going to take over all these little countries over there and join bands with them. Read.
The middle of verse 8. And is gathered out of many people against the mountains of Israel, which have been always waste, but is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely, all of them.
Now, when it says have always been waste, when was it originally destroyed with the sword? In 70 AD by the Romans. So now our people are going to start making our way back in certain areas, and eventually those people over there are going to look to try to mess with those who are in quiet, our people who are in the wilderness areas. Read.
Verse 9. Thou shalt ascend and come like a storm. Thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land, thou and all thy bands and many people with thee.
Go ahead.
Thus saith the Most High Ahiah. It shall also come to pass that at the same time shall things come into thy mind, and thou shalt think an evil thought. Verse 11. And thou shalt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages.
I will go to the land of unwalled villages, to show you when Israel is restored back in the wilderness, they'll be in the wilderness areas in tents with no walls, no protection. The Most High will be their God, will be our God. Read.
I will go to them that are at rest, that dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls, having neither bars nor gates.
So when Israel is restored to some degree originally in the wilderness, there will be no guards and gates and all that. It's going to be like the Most High being a fire round about. Zechariah the 2nd chapter. Read.
Verse 12. To take a spoil and to take a prey, to turn thine hand upon the desolate places that are now inhabited.
So now those over in the Middle East that are there, they're going to look to try to take down our people in that particular area in the wilderness. And that's after the fall of Babylon. They're going to set their sights on our people who are in the wilderness areas. Read.
The middle of verse 12. And upon the people that are gathered out of the nations, which have gotten cattle and goods, that dwell in the midst of the land.
Go ahead.
Verse 13. Sheba and Dedan, and the merchants of Tarshish, with all the young lions thereof, shall say unto thee, Art thou come to take a spoil?
Art thou come to try to take down these people? Read.
Hast thou gathered thy company to take a prey? To carry away silver and gold, to take away cattle and goods, to take a great spoil? Therefore, son of man, prophesy and say unto God, Thus saith the Most High Ahiah, and that day, when my people of Israel dwelleth safely.
When my people of Israel, talking about the children of Israel, not the Khazars, shall read.
Shalt thou not know it?
Did you not know that the Most High began to awaken his people and gather them there? Why? Because when they strike Iran, Iran is going to go off so hard throughout this earth. There will be no end to their terror. It tells you that in Isaiah 13, to the point where once they accomplish certain takedowns, they're going to think an evil thought in their mind to come against our people over there. To show you, I'm not down with none of these characters. I'm just telling you the truth according to scriptures. Isaiah 13 says Iran is going to be used, which is the Medes, to make Babylon desolate. Linking up to Revelation 18, where all the people are going to be crying who see her burn from afar off. No more music. No more of her greatness. No more of all the goods. No more of her Hollywood movies. All that made her splendor, made her great, you'll see on fire. So once Iran do that, well, not do that by herself, because the 10 horns are also going to play a part of it in Revelation 17, because they want to bear her and make her naked. They want to destroy her so that Rome can get power for a time. But once Iran do this, they're going to believe that they are a superpower, and they're going to begin to try to come against us in different areas. So they're not without fault themselves. Right? Read.
Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 15. And thou shalt come from thy place out of the north parts, thou and many people with thee, all of them riding upon horses, a great company and a mighty army. Verse 16. And thou shalt come up against my people of Israel, as a cloud to cover the land. It shall be in the latter days, and I will bring thee against my land, that the heathen may know me, when I shall be sanctified in thee, O God, before their eyes.
And it shows this when you go into Ezra. It shows that once they think that they are destroying us, once they think they have a win, it's going to be total darkness, and Christ will hit the atmosphere. Weave himself a mountain and come against all the countries who thought they would come up and try to destroy God's people in the wilderness. No longer will it say that this is the God of our fathers that brought us out of the land of Egypt. How we came out of Egypt will be small potatoes compared to how the Christ is going to save us through this one. Read.
Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 17. Thus saith the Most High Ahiah, art thou he of whom I have spoken in old time by my servants the prophets of Israel, which prophesied in those days many years, that I would bring thee against them? Verse 18. And it shall come to pass at that same time, when Gog shall come against the land of Israel, saith the Most High Ahiah, that my fury shall come up in my face.
Go ahead.
For in my jealousy and in the fire of my wrath have I spoken. Surely in that day there shall be a great shaking in the land of Israel, so that the fishes of the sea and the fowls of the heaven, and the beasts of the field, and all creeping things that creep upon the earth, and all the men that are upon the face of the earth, shall shake at my presence. And the mountains shall be thrown down, and the steep places shall fall, and every wall shall fall to the ground. Verse 21. And I will call for a sword against him throughout all my mountains, saith the Most High Ahiah. Every man's sword shall be against his brother. And I will plead against him with pestilence and with blood. And I will rain upon him, and upon his bands, and upon the many people that are with him, in overflowing rain, and great hailstones, fire, and brimstone. Thus will I magnify myself, and sanctify myself, and I will be known in the eyes of many nations, and they shall know that I am the Most High Ahiah.
This is what we're reading here, is simultaneously with Christ's return, coming from the east first, making his way back. Hails of fire. This is what Christ is bringing. So this is not about the Messiah protecting the Jewish people in that land today. Okay? It tells you in the prophets that the kings that are over in our land, the thieves that are there, are going to run into Kittim for a while for refuge before they go back to Europe. The only people that's really going to be left in the wilderness areas are our people who have come out from different areas. Some of our people who are in Ethiopia, that's going to be forced to run into the wilderness area. Once Persia destroyed Israel, Because they will, once they strike Iran, Iran will shut down the Gulf of the Middle East, of Saudi Arabia. And they will throw down in that area. Our peoples who are in southern Israel, they're going to flee into the wilderness areas. And then the Persians, with steam behind them, will believe that they can take us down. Okay? They're going to have all the armies with them. They're going to break the hand of the UN and take over all the armies in that area. That's what's going to happen according to prophecy. Now, some people might ask, well, what is Europe going to do here? Well, Europe don't care, because Europe is looking for them to destroy each other. Then they can come and clean up the residue. Europe has another plan. They need to plan for Christ coming now. That's what the Romans are going to be preparing for, the spiritual and physical warfare when Christ makes his way back to where they are. So I just thought I would give you a blow-by-blow on what's going to happen once they strike Iran. They're going to strike Iran. And like I said before, when they strike Iran, the world will be that day going forward like never before. But it will lead to the coming of our Lord and the saving of the children of Israel throughout the four corners of the earth. Some people might ask, well, what can I do based on this and based on the geographics of where I am in prophecy? What anyone can do is serve the Most High in spirit and in truth and keep his commandments. Look for a way and an opportunity on the road of serving the Most High, to be like pilgrims in the earth in those days. Let's get that real quick, the last scripture, before we open up questions. Again, I'm going to say, no place is home until we're home. You must desire Zion. And this world cannot present Zion to you. No place is home until we're home. That's the mindset you must be in. We all must be in. Read.
2 Ezra chapter 16, verse 40. O my people, hear my word. Make you ready to the battle, and in those evils be even as pilgrims upon the earth.
See that? And those evils be as pilgrims. Okay? Stop believing or thinking that that car is your car, or that house is your house, and you done worked so hard to have. Listen, everything you have will be nothing very soon. That's just the truth. Like Christ say, when it happens, don't go into your house. Don't try to go there. You gotta be ready to roll. You got to save your soul just to operate with others so you can link into the spirit to fight spiritually. Read.
Verse 41. He that selleth, let him be as he that fleeth away, and he that buyeth as one that will lose. He that occupieth merchandise as he that hath no profit by it, and he that buildeth as he that shall not dwell therein.
Another thing, because I know some people, this is a thought that some people might be asking, why would the UN and the world bodies, if attacking Iran is setting hell loose on earth, why would they do this? Why? It doesn't make any sense, right? I said before, brothers and sisters, this is part of depopulation. They're looking to eradicate Israel, and they have made safe havens for themselves. They don't see a way that they can just destroy the majority of us right out. They can't do it that way. We would band together and fight. So they must use these little proxy wars and hope to eradicate us in number through these wars. That's the whole point. I mean, look how many of us died in Vietnam. None of us had anything. Listen, the Viet Cong did nothing to us. But why is it we're the people who suffered in number? dying in Vietnam. Black people, poor people. Why? That was the objective the whole time. Not to fight the Viet Cong, to get these people in war and test all these different agents on them and kill these young men in war so we can stop them from having children and populating. That's what these wars are about. So these guys are looking to run into these caves and run into their little private areas while the poor in these cities get utterly annihilated. This is the plan. This is this is Rome 70 AD all over again. And I can't keep putting this out there enough. And I'm saying this because the Most High is showing us once they hit Iran, all hell gonna break loose. And this is not gonna be for a temporal period. That means the earth will degrade from day to day. From the point they hit Iran, it will never be the same. What happens if once they hit Iran, Iran says, okay, it's on then. And the first thing they do is bomb all the areas where Halliburton is and where all the oil tanks are. What happens to your oil resources? What happens to the price of things? This is what they're planning. This is what they're planning. Then they're going to say, well, because there's a lack of fuel, by default, you know, we got to start doing we have to conserve energy now. Let's start doing rolling electric, where your electric is on for only 2 hours a day, and different things like that. All these things that are happening in third world countries is going to come to Babylon. And let me tell you, I didn't look at it, I only looked at a part of it, but I think they have some series out now in America called Revolution, in which they show America after the fallout, which they claim after all the electric have went out in the country. See, but if all the electric go out in the country, you're going to have more to deal with than some people riding around with swords trying to get some order and cut the electric back on. All right, it's come on now. What are they programming us? What are they trying to get us to adjust to? These are programs. Listen, if all electric go out, it's a done deal, especially on the fault line, because all your nuclear reactors need power. So what happens if you're not cooling those rods in the nuclear reactors? What happens? You don't cool those rods because there's no electric. You're going to have the Fukushima thing 100 to 1,000 times all through the country. This is what they're planning. Only thing we can do is come back to the Most High, save as many as we can. Those that follow the commandments and follow the Most High will be directed. But the majority of us as a people have already turned to the other side, have already given up. That's that number that the Bible is speaking of, that 90%. They have already given up. They've already done it. So the only thing you can do is try to keep the commandments, show others, and prepare yourself the best you can for the generation we're born in. That's the most we can do. I'll say this to you, brothers and sisters there. Also, just do the physical things you can do. Have others, wake others up to what's going on. Tell them to ignore that garbage coming out of the Christian church, which is total diversion. Okay, all the singing and partying and getting up and down and dancing, total diversion. Ignore that diversion and look at these prophecies on what's going on in the earth. Come together, make others aware, pray to a higher Bahashem Yeshaya, which is the Most High's true and holy name from the throne. On the physical side, I would say first and foremost, and people talk about preppers and all that. I'm not down with the prepper movement and all that other stuff. I'll say prepare enough so if something go out, you have some food and water for enough space to get you someplace else. If you're looking at bunking down for 6-7 months in a place, how is that possible? Who's going to let you be someplace for 6-7 months and you haven't paid any rent? So it don't even operate like that. You understand? I mean, you have to really think about that. If things go out, how are you going to pay your rent? What goes on when all your debt reverts back to the government and they come to seize property, which is Agenda 21? So when the Bible says be like pilgrims in the earth, first of all, exactly, you must maximize your options to go someplace else if needed. That's the first thing. Everyone should have a passport. Man, women, and children, everyone in your house should have a passport first. So that if something breaks out or if something happens, the Bible tells us in Jeremiah, that the first time something is alarming, where these people who are immigrants of the country, you'd be surprised the number of immigrants. The first sign that they cannot make the money they're making in that country again, they going back home. They have passports. Brothers and sisters, think about it. Those people, those Asians and all those people in your neighborhood selling you goods, how did they get there? So they have access. They have access that you don't even know about. Being able to travel is the greatest freedom. If you can't go from one place to the next, you are a slave. Get your passports while there's still opportunity, because based on what this guy was breaking down the day before yesterday, he said, listen, it's going to come a time where they're going to shut the whole unit down, where you're not even going to be able to apply for one. That won't even be that's not even an option. And I don't know what's going on, but Homeland Security is already linked in with Mexico and Canada and say, listen, don't be letting Americans just come to your country and buy stuff. A matter of fact, there's a new international law that if an American sets up a bank account in another country, that America can seize the money in the account. That law is not on Brits. That law is not on other people. So what's going on with that? That Social Security number. It's that bond number you have, your slave birth certificate, which is stock. And if you leave and go someplace else, they're not making money from you. If you stay and there's a disaster, by default, they can get you to work for free in one of these camps. Therefore, maximize your value. They'll pay your food, shelter, and raiment in jail while you work to make products for the rest of the world. That's coming too before the last fall. One second, and then we'll answer questions.